A wave of sadness has swept across the Jewish community with the news of the passing of Emeritus Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. He was garlanded with honours from the Jewish and non-Jewish worlds alike, in recognition of his leadership of the Jewish community, his contribution to the national discourse, and for his trailblazing work in Jewish philosophy. I fear to eulogize him because I am sure to do him less than justice, but it is a chance I am prepared to take. His mastery of philosophical thought was peerless, and he was renowned for his courage and the depth of his thought in writing and speaking. I remember admiring his stand for religion in a public debate with Richard Dawkins, and his calling out of anti-Semitism when it reared its ugly head in matters pertaining to UK politics and Israel. Whenever I heard him speak, be it in shul, at LSJS, or the BBC's Thought for the Day, I was taken with what he said. He communicated profound Torah ideas with such clarity and simplicity that one could not but agree, and he was much admired for his eloquence as he brought the wisdom of Torah both to the Jewish community and to the wider world. He was a prolific writer and international lecturer in Jewish and non-Jewish institutions. He wrote deep scholarly works for those of philosophical bent, little booklets for everyone who came to shul for the high holy days, a long-running series of thoughts on the parasha entitled Covenant and Conversation, and all were greeted with acclaim. Perhaps one of his greatest achievements was the creation of the Green Chief Rabbi Sacks Siddur, a Siddur whose widespread use is the most eloquent testimony to its quality. The Siddur, like all of his writings, is a jewel in the crown of Anglo Jewry, simple to use, clear in its message, and yet not allowing the need for clarity to compromise on its depth and originality. We were proud of him, and he was proud of us. He loved being chief rabbi and was vocal in his praise and encouragement of the Anglo-Jewish community. I remember that he once quoted a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, chapter 2, Mishnah 11. It lists the pupils of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and says he would recount their praise. Chief Rabbi Sacks commented on this, that the role of a great leader is to praise those whom they lead, so that those whom they lead can become great as well. But for all his erudition and leadership, he was not haughty, and in this too he followed in the ways of God himself. Thus, one of the praises that we say of the Almighty every Motzei Shabbat is from a Gemara in Megillah 31a. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Wherever you find the greatness of the Holy One, blessed be He, there you find His humility. As it is written in the Torah, for the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great, mighty, and awe-inspiring God, who allows no favoritism and accepts no bribe." Immediately afterwards it is written, He upholds the cause of the orphan and the widow, and loves the stranger, giving them food and clothing. Thus it was with Chief Rabbi Sacks. He did not use his genius and scholarship to intimidate or to claim honor for himself. He cared for us rabbis in a special way. He was always there for us, and was always positive and encouraging. The first time I met him was in 1997, when I visited the UK for a trial Shabbos in Reading Shul. I got to see Chief Rabbi Sacks at his home on Friday morning, and he spoke to me about becoming a rabbi. He quoted a Rashi on Bamidbar, Numbers 27:18, where God says to Moshe, Kach lecha et Yehoshua bin Nun, ish asher ruach bo, v'samachta et yadcha alav. Take Joshua the son of Nun, a man who has spirit in him, and lean your hands on him. This was how Moshe was to appoint Joshua as his successor. Rashi comments on this verse that take is not a verb that can be used with a person in the physical sense, as it is not appropriate to talk of a person in such terms. He therefore says that Moshe's taking of Joshua here was persuasion. Kach lecha kachenu bidvarim ashrecha shezachita lahanhig banav shemakom. Take him with words. How fortunate you are that you have merited to lead the children of the Almighty. And this was the Rashi that Chief Rabbi Sachs quoted to me to encourage me in my vocation as a rabbi. That conversation has been a source of encouragement for me throughout nearly a quarter of a century in the rabbinate, and I am grateful to him for this sound and timeless encouragement whenever I think back to it. Furthermore, my daughter Shoshana once approached him at a rabbi's conference and asked him this halachic question. We know that the bracha on fruit is borei pri ha'etz. What then is the bracha that we say if we eat twigs or leaves from a fruit tree? The chief rabbi, busy though he was, and with a portfolio of the day's lecture notes in hand, stopped and thought carefully about this little girl's question, and then he answered that the bracha would be shahakonu here bidvaro, the bracha that we say on eating unusual things. I was so taken with the fact that he took the time out to answer this question. It was as important to him as anything else he would do on that day or on the world stage. In conclusion, I would like to quote from the end of last week's parasha and the beginning of this week's parasha. Last week's parasha Vayera finished with the news of the birth of Rivka. Sometime later, Avraham was told, Milcah too has borne children to your brother Nachor, Ut the firstborn, Buz his brother, Kemuel the father of Aram, and Kesed, Chazor, Pildash, Yidlaf, and Betuel. And Betuel was the father of Rivka. This week's parasha begins with the death of Sarah, the first of the matriarchs. The Midrash says that these two events, the birth of Rivka and the death of Sarah, are not a coincidence. Rather, it was precisely because Rivka had been born that Sarah could pass away, since Sarah's replacement had now arrived in the world. This, says the Midrash, is the meaning of the 5th verse in Kohelet. The sun rises and the sun sets. Before one sun sets and leaves this world, another sun has already risen to take its place. This, say the rabbis, is hinted at by the opening line of our parasha, recounting the death of Sarah. Vayihyu chayei Sarah me'ah shana v'esrim shana v'sheva shanim, shenei chayei Sarah. Sarah's lifetime, the span of Sarah's life, came to 127 years. The initial letters of the phrase introducing the span of Sarah's life spell the Hebrew word shemesh, meaning sun, hinting at Sarah's passing being like the setting of the sun, which can take place because the new son, Rivka, had already come into the world. Thus it is when any of our leaders leaves us. We need never fear that we will be bereft of visionaries, guides, and advocates, because God will always send people to chart our way forward and fight our corner. Our job, meanwhile, is to ensure that, as King Solomon said, Zeche Tzadik Livracha, the memory of a righteous person is a blessing. Let us take Chief Rabbi Sachs' ideas to heart, not only what he taught, but also how he lived, and ensure that our memories of him will live on through our actions as a blessing for ourselves, our families, and the wider world. Tehei nishmato tzura b'tzorach hayim. May his soul be bound in the bond of eternal life.